Hi, everybody. I'm Stacy.
And I'm her daughter, Mickey.
And welcome to KiddieNomics. All right, everybody. We are super excited today. I've been talking about this one KiddieNomics session for like months now because we have a special guest. We have Miss Marci Ien, our Member of Parliament for the Liberal Party for Toronto Central. And I am so excited to have her on today. Like, this is such a win for the KiddieNomics community. But before we get started, let me share my screen. And here we go. Okay. There we go. There's KiddieNomics. All right. So first, let me apologize. I'm sorry we were a few minutes late today, just because we had some technical difficulties. So I do apologize for that. As you guys know, we're never late for KiddieNomics. So we apologize. But listen, let's get started. All right. So first of all, we'd like to always welcome all the new kiddies that joined, that signed up for KiddieNomics. We've seen a whole bunch of signups this week, right?
Yeah.
So we'd like to welcome you to KiddieNomics. If it is your first time, put in the chat box that it's your first time, and the kids will welcome you to KiddieNomics. And of course, we would always shout out of our returning that have been with KiddieNomics every week after week, every Friday that we're here on our Financial Literacy Fridays. So welcome back to KiddieNomics, right? So let's get started. Like, what is KiddieNomics? So KiddieNomics is here to help kids ages 8 to 13 to develop a healthy relationship towards financial literacy, helping to start kids off on the right path to have a successful financial future. That's what we want for you. That's what I want for her. That's what she wants for me. That's what we want for everybody around the world, right? We want everybody to have a super successful financial future. And with that comes financial literacy, right? So let me just do some housekeeping items. Then I know the kids are waiting to do roll call. So I'm not doing roll call yet. Hang on. I'm just going to go through our housekeeping items. So please remember, every KiddieNomics webinar is recorded. So we are recording this webinar because we post every KiddieNomics webinar on our KiddieNomics YouTube channel. So if this is your first time, don't worry. You can always watch back any of our previous webinars, and we got a whole bunch, right? Yeah, there's a lot there. So you can go back and watch any of our other past webinars. And this webinar will be posted tonight by 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight, okay? So in case you do miss anything, or if you had, or you missed the beginning part, you can always watch it back, okay? Now, please remember that we can't see or hear any of you kiddies, right, to maintain privacy for all the kids. So the chat box is where we happen. That's our KiddieNomics community there. So we'd love to keep our KiddieNomics community healthy and safe. So that means I don't ever want to see any phone numbers, email addresses,
other people's addresses,
your personal address, no ages. Yeah. I don't want to see any personal information in the chat box, okay? Because we just always want to maintain your privacy. The chat box is there to ask and answer questions. And also, please no spamming, because it just takes up space, and then I'm always reading through your questions and your answers, right?
And it also crashes some people's laptops.
Yeah, it says it crashes some people's laptops. So please, no spamming, okay? All right, so let's do roll call. Hold on. So let me just open up the chat box on my end. Okay, so everybody in the chat box, you're going to tell me which country you're joining us from today, okay? All right, let me go back to the beginning. Let me see. Stacy Ann says Canada. Nicole says Canada. Bria, Canada. Oh, roll call. Gabriella says roll call. Nelma, Canada. Galaxy S8, your phone. You said Canada. Layla is from Mars. Is that Kelsey? I'm not sure. Kepler. Oh, okay. Maybe you're from Kepler again. I got to figure out where Kepler is. Nicole, you're from Canada. Gabriella, Canada. Andrea, Canada. Riel, Canada. Orulu, Canada. By the way, it's long weekend super excited. Layla's from Mars. Let me see. Is there anybody outside of Canada today?
Yeah,
Let me see. Did I miss anybody outside of Canada? Nope. We have Akira, Canada, Hasset. Hasset, you just said yes. Does that mean you're outside of Canada? I'm not sure. Leaf and Blake says the great land of Canada. So Canada is repping today. We love that. Oh, Mickey, where are you from today?
Let me see.
Hurry up.
I'm from.
Oh, Mickey from Haikyuu. Always anime, right? Always anime. All right. So that was a good roll call. Okay, so let's get into our special guest, because as you guys can probably tell, like, I am so excited and so humbled and so honored to have this special guest today. This is, like, you guys don't understand, this is such a huge win for the KiddieNomics community. So I'd like to introduce Miss Marci Ien. She's the Member of Parliament for Toronto Centre. And so Miss Marci Ien is the Canadian politician serving as the Member of Parliament for the riding of Toronto Centre. Why am I having a hard time today? I know, I'm too excited. I'm so excited. Prior to her current position, she was broadcast journalist for CTV. Ms. Ien has been a co-host on the CTV daytime talk show, The Social. Who loves The Social? I do. I know some of you kids may not know what The Social is. Since 2017, before she was a reporter for CTV News and a co-anchor on the CTV morning program, Canada AM. She was also a cast member of a kids show in her earlier life. So that's why she fits right into KiddieNomics, right? He fits right into KiddieNomics. So we'd like to give a big KiddieNomics round of applause. Miss Marci Ien, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, Miss Marci. There we go. Hi.
Hi, it's so good to see you. I have to say, I love what you're doing. I wish I had something like this when I was a kid. What a great idea and so necessary. This is amazing, amazing work. And you make it fun, and that's what's important too. And educational, combining those two things, amazing. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. You know what? While you were reading that intro, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I am going to be 52 in July, and that means 42 years in television. Because as you mentioned, I started as a kid. So let me just paint a little picture for you.
Yes.
My parents emigrated from Trinidad. They came here to go to school in the 60s. And basically, I was born here. They finished up their studies. My dad is a retired educator. My mom, a retired accountant. And I tell you this because they didn't know what to do with an artsy kid like me. I was really artsy. I wanted to be in the school plays. I like to sing, although my mom sang too in the church choir, but I like to sing. I loved music, all these things. And so very interestingly enough, I grew up in Scarborough. My dad's schools were always in North York. And a long time ago, before the city had amalgamation, there were different boards. So if I had a PD day, if I had a day off school, I would just go to my dad's school for the day, and I would be with him because his school was usually in session. And so the teachers there got to know me a little bit. And one teacher in particular had a son who did commercials. And she said, you know, Marci would be really, really good at commercials. She's outgoing. And my dad said, you know, I don't know about that. And then one day she came to school and said, listen, there's an open audition for a show. You know, Marci doesn't have to have any particular experience. It's just an open audition. She'll go, she'll read a script, she'll sing, and then go from there. And so basically, my parents, you know, accountant and teacher, decided that they'd let me do this. And that was pivotal. And just, I say this as a word of encouragement for parents as well, for parents out there, that it's really, really important to listen to your kids, understand your kids, and maybe even if you're not comfortable, you know, with the journey that they're headed down or direction with regards to likes and that kind of thing, it is important to try. My parents had no idea about acting and shows and all these things, but they said yes. And that was pivotal because that really set the course for my life 42 years ago. It set the course. And so I went to this audition. They said, read this script. I read a script. There were maybe 200 other kids there. They called it a cattle call audition back then because there were so many kids. And then I got a call back. And the next time I went, there were maybe 50 kids. And then I got another call back and there were maybe 20 of us. And then I got another call, and that call was offering me a role on a show called Circle Square. And that's where it all started. I was on that show from 10 years of age to 16. And it really, set out a course. I look back now and think, wow, it was laying the table for everything that was to come. We had morning call times. We did the show because we're all kids going to school. We did the show on Saturday mornings. And guess what time we had to be there? 4:30 a.m. Going to the studio at 4:30 a.m. We went through makeup, a quick, little makeup thing. And then we taped 2 shows a day. We also sang, we did a couple of records. And so that meant studio time. It meant working with a musical director after school. The one rule that my parents had for me was I had to keep my grades up. So yes, I was allowed to do this show and all the things that came along with it, including travel. We traveled a lot for the show too, but I had to keep my marks up, which I did for 6 years. On that show, I met a lot of interesting people. The kids were amazing. We became a family. But that aside, there was a director on the show whose full-time job was working at CBC Sports. And he went to Ryerson University. And I asked him, about his job and how he got his job and how he came up in the business. And then and there, I thought, this is what I'm going to do. Ryerson's the place that I want to go. This is the route I want to take. Radio and television arts is what I want to do. And so 10 to 16 did the show. And when I was 18, I applied to Ryerson, got into the radio and television arts program. I ended up working in my last year of school for a television station in Hamilton, Ontario called CHCH. I was a writer and reported when they needed somebody to go out and basically had nobody else. And then I moved up after graduation. My last role at CHCH was as the Queen's Park Bureau Chief. I was the Queen's Park reporter for CHCH, but based at Queen's Park in Toronto. And then in 1997, I got a call from the national network and made the jump from CHCH to CTV National News. And CTV National News is where I spent 20 years of my career. So between filing on national stories from, air crashes to, huge criminal stories, you name it. I went from doing that to Canada AM in 2001, where I was a news anchor. And then a couple years later, became the first Black female co-host of a morning program in this country when I was named co-host of Canada AM, along with Bev Thompson. And that was amazing.
So amazed. Can I just say that? Like, I don't want to hurt you, but she's so amazed.
No, it's just, you know what? I was grateful. I was thrilled. But when you're the first at something, when you're the first person to do something and you're a Black woman doing it, Black person doing it, there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with that. I wanted to make sure that I did the job well. I wanted to make sure that there would be others coming up behind me and that I would be some sort of beacon, so that people could say, listen, Marci did this job well, so we're going to hire someone else that looks like her because we had a great experience when she was with us. That's how I was thinking, that I had to be better. I had to be better researched, all of that. I spent 13, almost 14 years at Canada AM between being a news anchor and being the co-host of that show. And about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, I think, the show ended. It was canceled. And I was moved from news to the entertainment division of Bell Media. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I was kind of taking my time. I thought, do I work on pitching a new show, another show? And I wasn't sure. I filled in on the social as a guest co-host, and it worked. It just felt right. And a couple months after that, I was given the job full time, and I stayed with the social, my best friends, Cynthia and Lainey and Mel and Jess, for 4 years, for 4 seasons. And then things changed. A couple of things happened, and I'll share them with you.
Yes.
George Floyd was killed. And I say this because we're coming up on the anniversary next week, the 1-year anniversary. And I really felt that as the only Black woman on the panel, what I said mattered differently. And how I reacted. I felt that I was speaking for a community. And so I chose my words carefully. And frankly, there aren't a lot of Black journalists in our country. And so I really felt that I had a responsibility, but it shook me. And, the trauma that we've all faced, and kids as well, how many of you have been bullied? How many of you have been called names? How many of you have felt that you don't belong? I just was completely shaken by the killing of George Floyd, maybe because we saw it, we could see it in real time. It was just awful. And I started to ask myself and question whether I was using my microphone the right way, and whether I was going to be in a job that I loved, but talk about the need for change and the need for inclusivity and the need for diversity and the need for more voices at the table. I remember one show in particular on the social, I shared that in almost 30 years, a 30-year journalism career, I had never had a Black boss. And what does that say about our newsrooms? What does it say about the inclusivity or lack thereof in our newsrooms? And so I started thinking about these things, and I thought, maybe it's time to do something different. And it's interesting how things work, because what happened to me, I know does not happen to everyone, but I got a call from the Prime Minister. So as I was thinking about change, this call came through, and he basically said, listen, you are at the top of a very short list. Would you consider running for the Liberal Party of Canada? And the fact of the matter is, I couldn't say no. And it bothered me that I couldn't say no right away, because it's not something that I ever saw myself doing. I had no plans to do this. But I talked to the people closest to me, and my daughter, my 16-year-old daughter, said to me, Blaze, at one point, she said, Mom, somebody's got to be there for us. Somebody's got to be there representing us. And if not you, who? And that just kind of stopped me cold. It stopped me cold. And I said, yes, somebody's asking, what is the Liberal Party of Canada? Maybe they don't live here. The Liberal Party is one of the national parties in our country. And it is the party that I'm a part of. So I'm a member of Parliament for the Liberal Party, which is the governing party in Canada right now. So hopefully that answers the question. But this is how it came to be. And I'll tell you, the Prime Minister said to me, he said, listen, I want you to know, we're asking you to represent and be the voice that you are right now. This voice that is demanding change. This voice that is saying we can do better as a country. Remember, we're coming to you now, not Marci, who was a news reporter and had to be neutral and maybe not share as much, because when you're doing news, it's about telling other people's stories and listening to other people. When I made that switch to the social and I pivoted that way and went to the social, it meant sharing more of my own story. And he said, please bear in mind that this is when we're coming. This is what we're doing now. You talk about financial literacy. I had to make sure that this was something that was feasible. Could I take care of my kids doing this job? Could I do the things that I, normally do? Did I have to cut back? What about going to Ottawa and traveling? What about my kids? How do I, do all of that? Major questions, but I jumped in. And I jumped in because I think it's important to move towards discomfort. When you're comfortable, as kids, adults too, but as kids, when you can do something, like you've learned a game, right? My son is 9 years old. He plays Roblox. He knows Roblox, right? You play Roblox too, hon? Yeah, right? He knows Roblox like the back of his hand. He plays with his friends. He could do it with his eyes closed. But when you do something like that, Layla says she plays Roblox, and Cheryl too. When you do something like that, it means you're not really learning. It's fine, it's comfortable, but you're not learning. And I thought, this is a chance for me to learn. It's a chance for me to grow, but more importantly, it's a chance for me to not just talk about things, put some action behind those things, because I'm now part of government. And so it's been about that. It's been about being at the table and sharing my lived experiences. It's one thing when people are sitting around a table with great intentions and they say, this is what we think this community needs. Here's the direction that I think we should go in. And it's quite another when there's somebody or other people sitting at the table who've actually experienced those things. So where I can now say, listen, this was my life experience. Growing up, this happened to me, or this happened to my family, or here's what I think we should do here because I lived that. It's completely different. And we need more of that. We need more of that. So here I sit. I ran in a by-election last October. I ran against the leader of the Green Party, a conservative candidate, as well as an NDP candidate, as a rookie, and won that by-election, and was so grateful to the people of Toronto Centre, whom many of them, I had to run the election. We all did through a pandemic. That was another thing. But for the people that I did talk to, so many of them said, why did you do this? Like, what do you do? We're used to watching you on our television. What are you doing? And I explained to them exactly what I told you. For me, it's about service. And we are never too young to serve. We're never too young to serve. It's always, I say, kindness over everything, leading with empathy, which means thinking about, the road of others, putting yourself in other people's shoes. And I do think that we're much better as a country, as a world, if we think that way. It's not always about us. It's about others.
That's such a phenomenal journey. And just the power. Our topic today, everybody, for KiddieNomics community is called The Power of Pivoting. And Ms. Ien, such a phenomenal journey in her story about how, she's gone from acting to a reporter to a talk show host to now serving Canadians. And this is so phenomenal. So can I go back?
Yes.
Talked about, the importance of opening the door for others. And I think that this is a really important thing. I remember Vice President Harris talked about, even though you are the first, you shouldn't be the last.
Absolutely.
And I always
Absolutely.
believe in that, right? And
Yes.
so I'd like you to share more about, how do you feel you can help open the door for others, and maybe what, and then I'm going to pivot to another question, but I want to talk about this topic because a lot of us are the first, a lot of us in our companies that we may work for, schools that we go to, right? You may not be in such a diversified school.
That's
so
right.
You may be the only person of your race in your class or in your school. And so if you are the first, how do you, set the example maybe, and how do you open up the door and allow other people to be comfortable with that, with now experiencing another race that they maybe haven't had a chance to really embrace before?
Yeah, and it's such an important question, Stacey, and thank you so much for asking it. When I was coming up in broadcasting, I didn't have any mentors. There weren't many people who wanted to take the time. And although, there were a couple of Black reporters at the time, sadly, they just didn't take the time. I asked, and a couple of us did as students coming up, and they just weren't particularly interested in helping in that way. So I vowed that if I ever made it in this business to a point where I had any sort of career happening, that I was going to help people. And so mentorship has been a huge, huge part of my career and continues to be, frankly, it does. I can't tell you how many students, how many kids came through the AM studios who interned, who have stayed friends of mine, whose careers I've seen develop. I mean, that is so important. In essence, I wanted to be what I didn't have. That's what I tried to do. I wanted to be what I didn't have. My good friend, Kayla Gray, is another first. Kayla is the first Black woman to host TSN,
Yes.
and now has her own show called The Shift. And she is amazing. And she is a close friend of mine. And I think she said it really well. She said, Marci, when you're walking through the door as a Black person, you're carrying literally a community with you. It's not just you walking through that door, it's everybody else too, right? And so that's the thing you bear in mind. And that's where some of the pressure, right? That's where some of the pressure comes into play, where it's not necessarily put on you, but it is. It's that big voice in your head. I've got to be better. I've got to do this better. I've got to be 10 times better than everybody else just to, get, half as far, all of those things. And so there is that. But at the end of the day, it really is knowing, and this is something that maybe not a lot of people speak to, that there's room for all of us. I think when I look back and think about the people who I reached out to and said, hey, I'm a university student, I'm in broadcasting, do you have time for some tea or time for 10 minutes to talk to me, and never heard back. Maybe the feeling was, hey, in this country that we call Canada, there aren't a lot of Black voices, and there aren't going to be a lot of us that get the chance to be here. So I'm not going to let you in when I'm just getting my foot in the door. And I feel that happens. It happens with women. It happens with all of us, and it's got to stop, because there's room. There's room, and we need more. I will not have done my job properly in this political realm right now if, when the next election comes along, there aren't people there because they saw me, or they saw Selena, or they saw Jean Augustine and others in Parliament and thought we can do it too. We will not have done our jobs well if we had been modeled particular behavior. And that's part of why I wanted to do this pivot as well, to show that this is possible. It's possible to switch and change and try to do it well if you're doing it for the right reasons. And I am, I searched my heart, I searched my soul, and I knew that the bottom line was service. So I knew that I was. But if I do this job properly, there'll be 10, 20, 30 more of me. When I was sworn in, I became the 100th woman in Parliament. For the first time in history, there are 100 women in Parliament. I want there to be 200. And I want a whole bunch of them to look like me. So there's lots more work to do.
Well, I like this comment from Cheryl. Cheryl says, I was the first Black girl in my class when I was in grade 1, but now there's so many other cultures in my class.
Yes.
So
yes.
she definitely knows your feeling about
yes.
being the first. And a lot of
the
us
first
experience being the first, and how important and significant it can be at that
yes.
time. So thank you, Cheryl, for that comment. All right, kiddies, always remember to type your questions for Miss Marci in the chat box so that I can read them out. But all the kids are basically saying, oh my gosh, amazing story. Wow, so nice. And by the way, they keep commenting on your house saying, nice house.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much.
Ask another one of the questions. Let me just make sure none of the kids had a question. Oh, Koi says,
and you did see my son. I think Dash just ran by.
Yes, I I saw the
Yeah,
peekaboo.
yeah, he did. He just ran by.
Oh, there he is.
Oh,
Yes,
1 sec, guys. I'm so sorry.
no problem.
What is it, honey? Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm back.
That's okay, no worries. Coy says he was the only Black boy in his class. Yeah,
Well,
Coy.
listen, Coy, and there's so many others who have said this. My daughter Blaze, that was her experience through most of elementary school and middle school. And I'll tell you a story that she has shared. She wanted to start something for Black History Month at her middle school, and there was maybe, I don't know, maybe she's one. I think she was the only one, only Black kid there, and she went to the principal and said, "Listen, can we do something for Black History Month?" And the principal said, "You know what, Blaze? There are a lot of months that we have to celebrate. There is Black History Month, as you mentioned. There is Cancer Awareness Month. There are all these different things, so we can't do everything." A principal of a school said that to the only Black kid in the school, and she came home crying. And I said to her, "Blaze, before I call the school, I want you to try to handle this. So you go back to your principal and you tell her that she hasn't respected you, hasn't respected what you asked of her, and to tell her why this is important, why celebrating Black History Month is important, and what kinds of ideas that you have." And she went back. Her principal still shut her down, but there was a teacher there who overheard. And that teacher ended up helping Blaze put together a kind of a special kind of presentation for Black History Month that was set up in the library. And it featured different books and I think a guest speaker. And so it was a huge lesson, in being the only and having to stand up. But I'll tell you, her voice has gotten a lot louder. Blaze now writes. She is, running for student government. I mean, she can't be stopped. I mean, those tears that day turned into something really fierce and courageous, and I love her for it. So keep
That's so
going,
amazing.
keep going.
United House. That's so awesome. Brielle says, my mom absolutely loves your book. So
Oh,
your book and what your title of your book, and then I'll just get to some other questions.
sure. So if here's the thing, the best laid plans. So I took a year to write this book while I was doing the social, and the book was meant to come out last fall. And I was meant to do a book tour and travel with the book and do all of these things. But then we were in a pandemic, and of course, none of that happened. We still launched the book, but I also ran for office. So the way it all worked out was the by-election was on October 26th, and Off Script, which is the name of the book, launched on October 27th. And it just how life was, because I really didn't know that I'd be running in an election, and the book still came out. So thank you so much for reading it and saying that. I poured my heart into it. It's every vulnerability. That's what off script means. When people are reading a script and they're sticking to lines. If any of you have been in a school play, or even just reading a book and reading everything word for word, that's being on script. When you're off script, it's just you. It's you just putting your heart out there. And that's what I did. And I got very, very personal, but basically it reads like a diary. So it is things that were happening to me with my personal life, the stories behind the stories you thought you knew, what was happening, people I worked with, interviews that I loved or didn't love, people that I met along the way. That's what off script is. It reads like a diary. Every chapter is a different story.
Oh, that's so awesome. Well, we'll definitely get to your book, because that sounds like a good read, at least for me. And then when Mickey gets older.
That's right. That's right.
When Mickey gets a little older. But can I ask you, now that you're in a position of service and you are, here to, help really, every community, but being the first in the Toronto Center, how can young people get involved? And how important is it for young people to get involved? Like, I have my answer. We've done a few other politicians on KiddieNomics because I think we need to get involved. But but for you, how can young people get involved, and how important is it for young people to get involved?
Listen, Stacey, I represent Toronto Centre, and people in the Toronto area or Ontario, Canada may know these areas when I call them out, okay? So Toronto Centre means Regent Park. It means Moss Park. It means Corktown. It means Cabbagetown. It means the Church Wellesley Village. It means a slice of Young Dundas, including Ryerson and the Eaton Center, that area there too. These are the areas that I represent. So during the by-election, I met a lot of young people along the way. And frankly, they weren't engaged in politics at all. And the reason they weren't, and they said this to me, is that they just didn't feel it would make a difference in their lives. And some of them said, well, we also have never seen anybody that looked like us do this. Tell us more about you. So that was really, really interesting. And so as we talked more and I heard more about their stories, you know, smart kids, they just don't feel that they've ever been included. If you don't see yourself, how could you possibly aspire to anything? If you don't see yourself doing certain jobs, if you don't see yourself in society, being a vibrant and vital part of society, then why would you ever think that you could accomplish that? And that's the crux of it right there, right? Our kids need to see us doing these things and setting that example to show them that it is possible. So there's that. There's that part. One of the first things that we did after winning, that we formed a youth council, because I wanted to hear from the young people in the riding. I wanted their ideas. I wanted to know what their challenges were. I wanted to understand where they were coming from. I wanted them to keep me in check and our team in check. And so we meet once a month, and they are amazing and they are honest. And they tell us where we're meeting the mark, where we're not. I hear about school. I hear about, you know, the fact that some of them want to be politicians. Some of them have aspirations and different things, but it's amazing. And for all those people who think that young people have nothing to offer, you know, they're too young, they don't have ideas, you know, they're not voters, so why do we care? We need to care because they're the future. And so young people, I mean, we just brought down a budget, and that is, speaking of finances, the finances for the country, young people. And our finance minister said to us as a caucus, and that means all of the MPs in the Liberal Party, she said, I hope you see yourselves in this budget. And when she said that, it really hit home for me, because we had so many meetings where I said, we need mentorship in our communities. Our young people need to know that things are possible. We need to put things in place where kids can go and they can learn and they can aspire and they can dream. And so when she said, I hope you see yourself, I saw money for young people. I saw money for after school programs, you know, that my kids in Regent Park and Moss Park are going to use, in St. Jamestown. And I did, like, the things that I wrote about, the things that I, you know, was on the phone about, the things that I said, we absolutely need to do this. I saw those things. And so I think, you know, we just have to be more inclusive of our kids, speaking of inclusivity, and show them that they are necessary and that they're definitely part of the conversation.
That is, you're absolutely right. What we always like to say, representation matters. And that's why, at least for us here at KiddieNomics, I always make sure that we represent a lot of our community as guest experts, because we need to show other kids that, you know what, you can be an accountant, or you can be MP like Miss Marci, or you can be a lawyer, or you could be, there's so many different things out there. And it just gives kids ideas as to, things that they may have never thought of, that they wanted to be a recruiter or they wanted to be a sports agent manager. You know, like
Yeah,
there's so many things out there.
so
So I
many
just think
things.
that is so phenomenal. You hit the nail on the head. And so thank you so much for that. I'm just going to read out a couple of comments. Nicholas wants you to know that his mom says that she loves you and watched you so much on the social, and she also admires you a lot. So
Oh, thank you. And sending so much love. That's really nice. I saw somebody as well, Stacey, asking what the show was called that I did from 10 to 16, so 79 to 85. And it's called Circle Square. That's what it was called.
so I guess you kids can Google that.
Yeah, it's called Circle Square.
Yeah, we can Google it. I'm sure
You can Google it.
episodes are on there. So we can definitely Google it. Gabriella wants to tell you that she wants to be just like you. So look, you're already inspiring some of our KiddieNomics kids, which is amazing. So I just wanted to get back to, you talked about your voice. And I just wanted to get back to that topic and using the power of your voice. How can kids use the power of their voice? And why is that important coming from kids? Because our kids are, kids ages like 8 to 13. And sometimes they may not feel empowered to use their voice. And so how do we empower them? And how do we show that they have power in their voice? Like they can make huge differences even at this age.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone asked me the other day, what would I have told my younger self, which is kind of the same thing. And I said that I would have been louder sooner. I would have been louder sooner. It took me a while to use my full voice. I think because I was trying to do the right thing. I didn't want to disrupt. And what I would say to kids now is disrupt. Don't stand by. If there are things happening that aren't right and you know they aren't right, if people aren't being treated the right way, if you're not being treated the right way, if you have a good idea, scream it from the mountaintops. Be heard. Be heard. Find that courage. And I'll tell you, once you do that, it gets easier each time. Once you find your voice and use it, it becomes natural. It becomes second nature. So I would say louder sooner. And that means all the kids on this call right now, if you're experiencing something or have experienced something and, you think that things should be different, or you don't like the way someone's being treated, it's time to speak up. It's time to speak up. Use your voice louder. Absolutely, Layla, louder. This is not the time to sit by and be quiet. It's the time to speak up and be loud. And loud, I should say, doesn't mean rude. It doesn't mean disrespectful. It just means you're saying, I'm going to be heard on this issue. I'm going to be heard right now. You need to hear from me. You need to hear my feelings on this. That's what that means right now.
That's amazing, isn't
Yeah.
that? Well, we have like one last question before we wrap up. As we are financial literacy community here,
Yes.
how important is financial literacy to yourself and to the Liberal Party? We are always about championing kids' financial literacy. And this is what KiddieNomics is all about. Just because, we've all made mistakes. And I wish that I had somebody like this or, something like this when I was younger to guide my younger self, right? And so I'm super excited for this platform. But I want to know from you, how important is financial literacy to you, and especially for the kids, and how can the Liberal Party help with that?
So again, two great questions. So important to me, Stacey. I look at certain communities in this country and to the States too, and you look at where the wealth comes from, right? When you research certain families, certain people, and you look at where it comes from, a lot of it is real estate. a lot of it is real estate. And what that means is that people are buying, they're not renting. That there is a segment of the population that is not in the frame of mind where they will rent and don't need to own. Ownership is so important. And it starts at listen, learning these lessons start at a young age. Start with, and I know you know this, and Nikki, I know you know this, with a bank account, with teaching lessons about stocks, with, looking at dividends. It means reading about things that are happening, reading about the companies that you use, or the places you buy your toys or your computer. All of those things are so important, but it all leads to ownership. And that is really the ultimate. That's where wealth comes from, right? It's ownership. And so that is really, really important to me. I mentioned that my mom was an accountant. I remember going to the store when I was young. She'd send me to the store to get milk or something. And my mom would give me, I don't know, $5. And it literally would come to $4.99 because she knew the prices, she knew the costs, she knew what things were, she knew how to save, she knew what she wanted. She knew she wanted a house for her family. So did my dad. These are lessons that I learned at a young age, and they're lessons that I pass on to my kids as well. It's something that is so important. Our party, yes. Listen, there are disparities, right? Not everybody can afford a house. And I think it's the basics. I think it's something that every Canadian should have and should be able to have. And that's something that we are absolutely working on. There is a rapid housing strategy that we put into place. And basically what it means is that houses can be built sooner, quicker, and cost less. And that means access to people that wouldn't normally have it. And in the carve out of that strategy, and there's new money for that in this budget, it's actually women-focused housing that there's a carve out for, which is amazing because there's so many female-led households, especially in my riding in Toronto and across this country, and they're carved out specifically for women, which I love. I thought this is the ultimate in feminism, that we're looking at housing, we're looking at real estate, we're looking at ownership, we're saying we want women to do that. Mm-hmm. And so extremely, extremely important.
That is so phenomenal, because that's what we talk about here on KiddieNomics. We talk a lot about real estate. We've touched on real estate quite often here on KiddieNomics. And there's a reason why I always have real estate on KiddieNomics, because it is 90% of the world's millionaires gain their wealth through real estate.
Absolutely.
And so it is a really important topic. But we also talk about stocks and bonds and Bitcoins and, the digital economy and, all of the other core financial literacy things too. But, Miss Marci has said it, how ownership is so important to building generational wealth. And so thank you so much, Miss Marci. Does anybody else have any questions in the chat box? I will read what Logan says. Logan says, thank you, Miss Ien. You are such an amazing person and so inspirational. I know one person said that your dad, Ronell says, your dad taught my mom in Teachers College.
That's awesome, at U of T. Yeah, my dad was a prof. That's awesome. Say hi. Yeah. Say hi. Oh my goodness. Please say hi. What a small world. That's awesome.
Isn't it? Brielle says, I can listen to her all day. So can I, Brielle. So can I. Okay, so yes, it was called Circle Square. So you guys can Google that for Miss Marci's show. Yes. And let's see. Okay, so that's it. All right. So Miss Marci, if you can stay on for like 2 more minutes, we're just going to wrap up. So everybody give a round of applause to Miss Marci for coming on KiddieNomics. I hope you guys are all leaving inspired, because I am. This was, thank you for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking me. Really, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so let me go back and share my screen so we can go back and finish up. All right. last question that we ask on every single KiddieNomics webinar, right? What would happen if kids became more financially literate? And our answer is
Real
real
change
change
that
that impacts the world. And why do we say that? Because financial literacy, it is a foundation that will help you guys to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. Whether or not you want to be a politician like Miss Marci Ien, or you want to be a lawyer or a doctor, and some of you guys are great artists already. You know, you're doing your own comic books, and you guys have so many great ideas. And financial literacy, no matter what you choose to do, will help you get there and be uber successful at whatever it is that you want to do. Okay. All right. So every week we call you guys our young financial literacy ambassadors. Well, what is an ambassador, right? Like, what is an ambassador? An ambassador is an authorized messenger or representative. And you guys represent us out there. We authorize you guys to go out there and share your knowledge that you've learned on KiddieNomics, right? Share it with your friends and your family and your community, because the more financially literate that you become and your friends become and your community becomes, then can you imagine the stronger as a community that we will all become? So what we like to say here on KiddieNomics is knowledge is our
superpower.
Superpower, right? And so the more that you share your knowledge, the stronger that you will become, right? And you guys are our superheroes, all of you guys out there. So thank you so much for being here every week on KiddieNomics. Let's just go into our schedule. So next week, we are doing a celebrate good times. Come on. We're doing our celebration. We're doing our KiddieNomics 1-year anniversary. We're going to celebrate. We're going to have a lot of special guest experts coming back on KiddieNomics. So next week, Friday, will be a special one. So please join us for that one. After that, starting in June, we have Miss Siobhan Bent. She's going to talk about how to use other people's money in real estate. So we're going to talk again about mortgages and how does that work. And that's going to be Friday, June 4th. After that, we're going to have Christina Morgan. She's going to talk to us about public relations and how to, get viewed. For some of you guys wanted to start your own businesses. So sometimes, you maybe want, a newspaper to write about you, or you want to get on a show, right? How do you get, how do you get viewed out there? So we're going to be talking about public relations with Miss Christina Morgan. Then after that, on June 18th, we're going to talk about how to build your own social media campaign, okay? And then last week of June, we're going to talk to Mr. Corey Shorewood. He is a director at Facebook, which is awesome. And he's going to talk to us how to build Facebook ads, okay? So that's going to be a really special one. And then coming into July, we're going to get back into cryptocurrency. So we're going to go back into Bitcoins. We're going to talk about cryptocurrency. So that's going to be for July. We're going to get back into stocks and crypto. So we're going to have some sessions on that, okay? Sorry, I am losing my voice. Hold on. All right, so we always want to hear. My Siri told me it's okay that I coughed. That is so funny. All right, so always remember that we always want to hear from you on KiddieNomics. Give me topic ideas. You give me an idea, and then I find an expert to come on KiddieNomics and share their knowledge. So you can always send me an email at kiddienomics101@gmail.com. Always with your parents' permission. Before you send me an email, please and thank you. And then, of course, please like and follow us on
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. So we've had this TikTok account for almost a year now, Miss Marci, and we have yet to post a video. So I promised the kids that I will have a video posted by the end of May. Do you do TikTok?
I don't do TikTok. Blaze said I'm not allowed to. She said, I'm banning you from TikTok. I'm not sure what that means, Stacey, but I've been banned.
Yeah, so we promised. The kids are like, come on, where's this TikTok video? We're gonna get to this video.
We didn't even
gosh.
I know, I'm gonna practice dance. I think I picked like one of the hardest dances.
She picked like one of the hardest dances. She can't even do a move.
I don't know.
My gosh.
So I'm gonna have to do some practicing. But anyways, we'll get to the video by the end of May. So anyways, thank you, Miss Marci, for coming on KiddieNomics. Thank you. It was a phenomenal
Pleasure.
So
My pleasure.
inspirational. Thank you. All the kids, thank you for joining. We'll see everybody next week and have a phenomenal long weekend.
Have a great weekend. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.